Is it always better at our tables to have more players? What if a scenario tells us how many players there should be? What if it imposes a limit on the number of players? Is that good? Is that bad? Shouldn't we always want more friends to participate? Well, when it comes to Call of Cthulhu scenarios, the answer is, it depends. Greetings, Miskatonic Repository. My name is Heinrich Mohr, and today I want to talk about designing your scenario around a specific number of players. I want to talk about why you may want to consider encouraging a smaller or a higher player count. Note, we're assuming that each player plays one investigator. That's not necessarily the case. However, the dynamics of controlling multiple investigators at the same time is kind of its own topic. Hopefully some of the information here though will be helpful if you decide to explore that possibility. Okay, now back to the video. Let's start by acknowledging the reality that the majority of scenarios are designed to support a range of players, usually 4 to 6. And that's for good reason. Generally, we want to get more players involved. I mean, what a terrible feeling to have 4 friends over to find that the scenario you wanted to play only has 3 pre-gens. More players means more characters, means more interactions for role-playing, more ideas for problem-solving, and more collective storytelling. In other words, more fun, right? It's also a great number if you have more socially anxious players who benefit from sharing the spotlight, or at least not having it shine directly on them for the entire session. And there's also personal preference. Many of us grew up playing with 4, 5, or 6 players at the table. So, that's what we're comfortable and familiar with. And that's good. But just as we should recognize the benefits, we should not blind ourselves to the drawbacks. More players means less time for any individual to shine. By extension, it may mean less time for the player to develop their character. At its worst, more players may mean feeling like you are getting to play the game less. More players can also result in players who are more quiet and less assertive getting lost in the crowd. With so many other people contributing and chiming in, they may not feel able to share their ideas. Now, as we've seen, each of these points has a counterpoint. More players means more players getting to play, but maybe getting to make fewer decisions. Introverted players may benefit from teaming up or from being given the chance to act independently. But the fact that we can argue back and forth about this topic generally doesn't mean that for a particular scenario, there isn't a player count that best facilitates the story and challenges that scenario is confronting the players with. So, why might we want to design a scenario around a particular player count? One answer is that we may be trying to create a particular social dynamic at the table. Social dynamic? What does that mean, and why do I suddenly sound more pretentious? Throughout fiction, we see examples of stories that feature a particular number of protagonists, where that number is part of and furthers the story being told. Think about it, the Three Musketeers, Bonnie and Clyde, the Magnificent Seven. Think how those stories would have changed or did change if and when the number of characters changed. Maybe that was through the addition of a new Musketeer, or a White Power Ranger, or a Sailor Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, or Venus, or a Sailor Pluto, Uranus, Saturn, well, you get the picture. Maybe that was through the death of some of the characters, like in Seven Samurai. In horror fiction in particular, it is often the decreasing number of characters that helps further the story. That's tough in a TTRPG, but not impossible, especially if we utilize NPCs, backup player characters, or other roles for players whose characters have met a premature demise. Designing scenarios for different player counts can help us achieve some of those same dynamics. So, what number of players is best to achieve? What kind of experience? Well, we'll discuss that in our next video. In the meantime, what have been your experiences with different numbers of players? Were there any benefits or drawbacks you discovered because of that number that we haven't talked about? I look forward to hearing your thoughts. In the meantime, stay tuned for more.